Hey guys, the new Milwaukee M12 FUEL Hatchet is out. We're going to take a look at this tool on our property here. We have a lot of different size trees. We're going to show you what it does do well and maybe what it doesn't do well and what you should expect from it if you're interested in buying one. Stay tuned. This saw only takes a maximum of 1.7 ounces of oil. Think of that as a shot glass as 1 ounce. Pour very little oil in here and go slowly so you don't overfill and make a mess. When the saw is new, we want to make sure the automatic oiler is working. So we're going to run it against, you can run it against anything, but we're going to put a rag down here and we should see some droplets of oil accumulate on the top of this rag. You can see them starting to come off the chain here. So we know the automatic oiler is working. Let's go out and do some cutting. The Milwaukee M12 FUEL Hatchet 6-inch pruning kit is model number 2527-21. This kit comes with a 4 amp hour M12 battery and a charger. Great way to buy this is you're going to really want that 4 amp hour or larger battery in here. It has a 6-inch bar, a 3/8 inch chain that is a full house chain, meaning that you have cutters on each of the drive links. That is important because it's going to reduce vibration. And when you're using this tool, you'll notice in the beginning that you'll get some vibration as you're actually cutting into a tree, and then it'll settle down as the tool gets into place and you place it up against the metal bucking spikes. This unit has a chain speed of 984 feet per minute, and this tool is really meant for landscapers or someone who's going to be cutting those 2 to 3 inch limbs. It has a cut capacity of 5.5 inches, but the reality is once you get out to that larger 5.5 inch or full cut width on this bar, it starts to show you that it could use a little bit more power, and that's not a bad thing. I think that the reality here is that Milwaukee designed this thing pretty perfectly as far as how much power it had to how much safety you needed and what the balance of a 6-inch chainsaw really should need or have without putting users in danger. Personal opinion. This has a variable speed trigger, and this is going to be the first saw that I'm going to say doesn't need the variable speed trigger, but it's nice to have it. Realistically, you want to make sure that this chain speed is at full speed when you start your cut and make a lot of the cuts. That's just more for safety than anything else. But if you were a professional using this saw in different circumstances, I can see where that variable speed trigger will really come into play. Now, I'm using this a lot with gloves, and like any other M12 tool that's out there, the handle or the grip around this tool uses and holds the battery, so that makes it a little bit larger. Now, I have very large hands. In fact, most Milwaukee XXL gloves will not fit me, and with my leather gloves on, I'm struggling a little bit to really get used to the safety in its placement while I'm getting into tighter places or just different and awkward positions. It would work and does work a ton better without gloves. Why am I wearing gloves? Poison ivy is rampant this year, and that was my way of saying, okay, let the gloves have it, I'll wash up again afterwards. So realistically, is it smart to wear gloves with this? Yes, you're probably going to want to. It is a chainsaw, but it does work better, at least for me, as far as feeling the safety in the trigger without gloves. Let's come in and take a look at this saw. This saw really does look like a mini chainsaw, and it is. It's realistically just as dangerous as any other saw out there, and it does cut pretty much as well as many other chainsaws do on the market. It is very lightweight, weighs 4.8 pounds with the included 4 amp hour battery. You have 1.7 ounces of oil that sits in here, and you can see there's oil all over this. It does leak a fair amount. It does oil quite a bit, so your chain is getting a ton of oil. That is wonderful. It does seem to leak out the bottom right in this area, and you can see it's actually leaking down here. So when you set it down, you'll start to get drips right under this area where your chain connects up to the spindle. Fairly normal on any chainsaw. I would not say that's a bad thing. If it were me, and what I will do with this is I'll just empty the oil like I do any other chainsaw and wipe it down before I put it away. You have your stench here. It's in nice and tight. In fact, one of the nicer ways of storing one of these on any of the chainsaws. As far as the grip, here's without gloves, this is perfect. I can hit the safety with my thumb, or I can push it with my trigger finger, no issue. Again, variable speed trigger. If you're left-handed, you can do same thing, whatever you'd like to do. The fuel gauge is on the right-hand side of the saw. Many times while I was out cutting, I wanted to put my hand on top. It feels comfortable, it's the easiest, the first grip. Obviously this is a safety, and you'll hear this 100 times over, not the right place to put your hand. It's simply too close to the chain. Anything happens, it's in the wrong place, but it's where you will gravitate to. I'll guarantee it. You'll hold it up here, you'll want to. It's just how it goes. And it's different. So get used to using it in the proper fashion. It's a safety thing. You want all your fingers. That's very important. Good grip, one-handed, two-handed, either way. I just, I felt I wanted to grab it in a different way, but I don't think Milwaukee could have changed this at all. They really just, this is easy, but it's a safety. And it's just the way it's designed. Not intentionally by anyone, it's just how it goes, that people are going to grab onto the easiest way in the outside. I'm going to get off that, but please don't cut your fingers off by using this improperly. So the chain here, very simple. It's just like any other chainsaw. You have one nut here that's going to be loosened up. We're going to actually take this off so you can see inside. And this is what this looks like after multiple batteries. Very simple. Lots and lots of oil. You can see this bar is very well oiled. Any wood that's in here is well oiled. In fact, just intense. That's great, right? It's going to be awesome for chain life, and that's what we want for a 6-inch chain that is not going to be readily available. So if you're out looking for one of these, you know, at any of the local hardware stores or anything because you burned yours up, or it needs to be replaced, it's going to be harder to find. So you might want to grab a chain or two just as a spare in case anything happens. Just keep that around. If you are adjusting this chain, all you have to do is make sure that this nut is loose. And because it's a small bar, you can do this in a few ways. You can pull out a little bit here, or you can use the chain tensioner and just tighten it up. Now you can get this chain incredibly tight, which is not what you'd like to do. Obviously, if you're used to chainsaws, you're going to want to pull and have the chain come back. Now this is a shorter bar, so you don't want to get it too tight, but you don't want it loose. And I found that it cuts a little bit better if it's just on the loose side. And you have to watch out because this thing will tighten up on you as you tighten this nut. So just make sure that it is not too tight and you'll be fair. Went in and touched up this chain a little bit just to make sure it's completely sharp. Got a 6.0 amp hour battery on it. I just want to do a full cut test on some dead black locust tree. I don't think the 6.0 amp hour battery made it, but I do think that sharpening this chain just a touch really helped out in this situation when you're doing a full cut. So if you know how to sharpen a chain, in which it might be a good thing with this 6-inch chain, is you're not going to find them everywhere. Sharpen this chain up a little bit when you get it, and I think you'll be more impressed if you're using it on larger cuts like this one. That's right, I do believe that the 6 amp hour battery does give you just a touch more power, but the reality is keeping this chain sharp and ready to go is very important. A full house chain does not eject chips as well because there's much more of them going through, even though this is a small bar. So having that chain nice and sharp will really help keep that power to cutting speed up. And because this isn't a very large saw, either way, the sharp chain will help you get through those full cuts a lot easier. And it'll even work better and cleaner on the smaller cuts. The Hatchet does a great job of oiling the chain. As you can see, there's a ton of oil sitting around this and inside all these places. That's wonderful. We want a ton of oil around this chain. But what you have to remember is it only holds 1.7 ounces. Remember that shot glass? It's a shot glass and 3/4. Keep an eye on your oil. We're gonna go in and fill this up. It was about one of these per 4 amp hour battery. Runtime on this saw is gonna completely depend on what you're cutting. Completely. In some cases, this saw just absolutely loved to go through a battery, and those were more of the full cuts, or where I was doing things that I was pushing the saw a little bit more. And in other cases, when I was just trimming little branches, this thing simply just seemed like it would run forever. What you need to make sure in that you're watching is that the oil that's in your oil reservoir does not run out while you're out in the woods. 1.7 ounces is simply not that much. I think a great example would be taking an average 30 to 40 foot tree and just limbing it, cutting it up a little bit. That will take you 1 to 1.5 4 amp hour batteries. And in that time, you should have filled up that oil tank probably once. So make sure that at least you check the oil once every battery, and that might not be enough if you're using this on really light, like 1 to 2 inch twigs. That will probably cause you to fill up with oil before the battery is out. Not a bad thing. I really like how much oil comes out of this bar and chain. The oiler works great. Some people might complain that you're getting a little bit of leaking, but to me, I'd rather see way more oil than not enough, because I've lived through the days where most chainsaws didn't give us enough oil, and that simply wasn't cool. Overall, guys, this hatchet has been awesome. Obviously, it was designed for the landscaping industry, but it can be used for so much more. If you own your own home, if you own property, if you camp, if you hunt, if you do anything with trees where you want to cut smaller branches, cut them faster, this thing works great. Remember, it's a chainsaw. Safety first. Keep your hands out of the way. Don't swing it around. Get it close to your legs or anything after you cut. It will cut you just like any other chainsaw. I'm really interested to hear your comments. Leave them below. As always, we appreciate your time here. Give us a like in this video. Subscribe to the channel. Have a great day.